My name is Ariane. I am a freshman at SDSU.
Okay, so these questions are just centered around like the entertainment business, pop culture, all of that. So my first question is, how do you feel about separating the art from the artist?
I don't think really that's a valid argument
Mm-hmm.
because essentially what an artist most of the time tends to do is integrate themselves into their pieces of art.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really separate that identity
Mm-hmm.
because it's so heavily integrated, so I don't think you can really separate those two things.
So do you think that still applies to like actors per se who play roles where they're not necessarily producing art but they are engaged in it?
I still think acting is sort of an art form. People do pull from their real life experiences
Mm-hmm.
and draw upon that to kind of evoke their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's a little different in terms of accepting like kind of like what kind of scripts you have,
Mm-hmm.
what type of like what period,
Mm-hmm.
what point in time these things are set in. But it is also up to that actor or actress to accept or deny roles
Mm-hmm.
in which they could be portraying things that don't represent them
Mm-hmm.
or aren't appropriate for their identity.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Can you think of like a specific example in which like a celebrity who has been in a controversial situation should not be separated from their art?
Should not be separated from their art.
Mm-hmm.
You're editing this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, should not. I can only think of instances in which they. Could you specify?
Like, just think of it like, could you just think of a celebrity who has been problematic per se and should rightfully so come under fire for that and like in a way be like exposed or canceled on the internet?
Okay. Well, the one that comes to mind is when Scarlett Johansson took that role of was supposed to be an Asian woman.
Yeah, I forgot which one it was called.
Yeah. Well, it's that one. She willingly took the role. I don't know if she knew necessarily, but it is kind of like your responsibility as an actor to know what you're getting yourself into,
Mm-hmm.
and if not hers, then her company's.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that like that should have been a situation in which she could have stepped back and prevented the backlash that came with accepting that role.
Mm-hmm. So do you think like the whole cancel culture that came around her and like the scrutiny that she still faces today, do you think she deserves all of it, or at least or most, if you think?
I feel like the way the internet executes those kinds of criticisms isn't always the most productive.
Mm-hmm.
Some people go into these roles just ignorantly, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
where you can't necessarily blame them entirely, and they have to be kind of not necessarily spoken to, but informed in a way that like can encourage them to learn from why
Mm-hmm.
this is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
why they're why taking that role is problematic, and it should also be coming from probably people of a little more authority who
Mm-hmm.
understand the situation, because it tends to be just a bunch of sometimes youth just
Yeah.
rallying up just because they see other people doing it on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of creates a culture that's a little more toxic, and
Mm-hmm.
in which celebrities, because they're just people too, tend to reject, flat out reject, and not listen
Mm-hmm.
to begin with.
So why do you think cancel culture is toxic, as you just mentioned? Do you have any other reasons as to why you believe kind of the practice of canceling celebrities like outright on, especially on social media, is wrong and unhealthy?
Like any other person, people are not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Neither are they, and they need to learn from their mistakes as well. But cancel culture tends to be very rapid fire,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like you should know better, kind of ruthless a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that like cancel culture, they do it so often. It's like older celebrities, maybe not often, but like I see that a lot, and like because of their age, are like, why don't you know this already? And just like any other person, people are still learning. It's just how they react to these people, even if they're being harsh, kind of like is what will help their career ultimately in the end.
So do you think you've ever participated or like fallen victim to bandwagoning or engaging in cancel culture?
Definitely, yeah. I feel like I have, especially back in like middle school or beginning of high school. It's just kind of like, wow, that was the most messed up thing ever. This person should not be trusted. You should just boycott everything they do. Don't support them anymore. And sometimes it's things that have come up from, like, they've already forgiven themselves for it, and like the internet doesn't keep record of more so of those things rather than the problematic things that come up. So I feel like anybody, especially younger kids or teens, are more subject to actually joining in on that cancel culture.
Do you think that social media has made it worse as time has gone by?
Yeah, I do believe so, because it just, the way it blew up within like the early 2000s, it enabled an entire new media, an entire new platform in which we could criticize other people. Unlike before that, the most you could do it's probably like spread a rumor through like a magazine or a newspaper. There wasn't any internet or social media for things to rise up and just tear down people.
Do you think cancel culture as a whole, do you think it's all bad, or do you think that there could be some positives that may come out of it?
I feel like the term cancel culture has the negative association. It's been coming up a lot more in social media, and people have been criticizing it. Could you repeat the question again?
Do you think it's all negative, or do you think some positive outcomes could come from cancel culture?
I feel like the intention of the whole movement, I guess you could call it, has positives, definitely, because of the way it can potentially educate these people who are being canceled. It's just the execution of the stereotype of a cancel culture isn't entirely the healthiest, and often doesn't explain to the person or to this individual why they are being canceled. So as long as it gets the message across like efficiently, cancel culture could be potentially effective.
Do you have any possible solutions to like fix the toxic aspect of cancel culture, like how to fix it and how to stop like bandwagoning or just like mob mentality that may come from cancel culture?
I don't know, if I feel like it just tends to happen. I don't know how to, you can't really control other people and what they contribute, but the best you can do is kind of educate the people around you, I guess, in how to like approach this cancel culture with like, without kind of like a irrationality or like irrational sense, and just kind of like spreading awareness as to how to become like a better like educator in terms of these stuffs. And also, if it's something that an individual has no really authority to talk over, it's best to kind of like direct to other people who do have the education and authority to speak on some kind of things like that, and take a step back and fact check.
So do you think it's fair for celebrities to feel like they have to be more careful with what they say on the internet, and in a way sometimes like even censor themselves?
I know personally that I wouldn't like it. But being a celebrity and being elevated to that level, that person kind of, in a way, chose that path a little bit because of the career they chose. You're ultimately going to be put on a pedestal because of your role as a celebrity, and I feel like it's a big part of their job to be in front of all different types of people, and you don't want I don't know about them, but I don't want like a bad influence per se being exposed to lots of different people, because everybody might get the wrong idea, and that might lead to other things that that celebrity may not have even intended to kind of like portray in the first place. And I mean, call it cliche or whatever, but a lot of kids and youth and teens look up to celebrities, and that influences often how they act.
Yeah.
Like, undoubtedly. So I feel like celebrities they should be a little more responsible in what they say, but it's hard to also say it. It's hard for me to say that because I don't know how much pressure these people are put under or what their personalities are. Is it any of my business?
Yeah.